Hello, everyone. I am Jocelin Sharfnejda. I am a sophomore here at Iowa State, and I am majoring in kinesiology and health with business.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Arleth de Avila. My major is Management Information Systems, and I am a junior. We are the ISCORE ISCORE 2021 scholars, and our research group is African American.
So our focus today, we decided to focus on African American women. But to start off our presentation, we have a few questions for the audience. You guys can just answer these in the chat box, and we will be reading off a little bit of the answers. So the first question would be, what do you think colorism is?
Okay, some people responded discrimination based on color. Someone else said discrimination based off the standards of someone's skin. Preference to lighter skinned women because they are most closely resemble white. Okay, I'm gonna ask another question here. What do you believe the difference between racism and colorism is?
Someone said racism is a system and structure. That's a good one. Someone else said colorism is within a race. Colorism can happen within a race, difference, shades of white, black, etc. Colorism can be internalized and stays with you forever. And colorism is within a community, a race, where racism is between communities, different races. Okay, so I'm going to read off another question. Could gender intersect with colorism? And since the last two questions are kind of similar, I'm also going to say the last one. How do you believe colorism affects African American women?
So someone said, absolutely, that's why there are European standards of beauty. As a Black woman, it has made me insecure about my dark skin tone. Yes, it can be. One example is when lighter Black women are more represented in the movie/TV industry. All right, those are pretty good responses. We're gonna go ahead and get started.
So now that we have talked a little bit about what you guys believe colorism is, I'm going to be giving you guys some examples, the definition of colorism and how it has been affecting African American women over the years. So what is colorism? Colorism is the discrimination towards someone based on their skin color or shade. This discrimination can occur across different ethno-racial groups or within the same racial group and it often tends to manifest both interpersonally and systemically. Due to the fact that it doesn't possess any immediate threats to society, colorism is often overseen or overlooked. Although it can happen within the same race, it is most seen within the Black community. While others are naive of the fact that colorism does exist, others just lack the proper knowledge of it. The causes and effects of colorism have been passed down from generations to generations. So now we're going to take a deeper look into where colorism could have first started. It is believed that colorism began during slavery times, and in order to justify racial slavery, slave owners would create a white supremacist ideology that would help people of African descendancy to believe that they were automatically inferior to whites. This is when the ideology of whiteness versus blackness began. Whiteness would be viewed as the standard civilized, virtuous, and beautiful. On the other hand, blackness would be viewed as sinful, ugly, and a burden, more to a point where it was a state of mind rather than physical characteristics. In 2015, a study was conducted by Erin Miller, a professor at the University of North Carolina, in which she found that the insidious nature of racism is deeply rooted in the lives of young children, and in order to interrupt or reverse it, one must know how race has been conducted over the years. Colorism is said to have begun as early as 1679. This is about 60 years after the first Africans were brought to the United States for slavery. This is when Americans first started to create race categories. Slave owners would often rape their slaves who would give birth to light-skinned children. Since slave owners would often deny those children as their own, they were consciously giving them different privileges. This was more seen when slave owners would assign those with lighter skin different tasks, such as like domestic tasks or tasks inside the home, while darker skin were given more demanding tasks, such as working out in the fields. These special privileges would not only include better treatment, but they were also offered some sort of pay, and were often seen more as an asset instead of a liability. This treatment would often start to create tension within the Black community. Other slaves would find themselves believing that light-skinned slaves would often be smarter, better, and more beautiful. This is when the term light skin privilege started to take its meaning. So, light skin privilege is given to those that have similar features as to those of the white race. It is a privilege in which individuals and social institutions unequally afford opportunities and assign social power to minorities based on their status, which in this case was their skin tone. It would create favoritism to those that have lighter skin and discrimination against those with darker complexions. It has benefited them in the labor market, the criminal justice system, and is perceived in personal attributes such as attractiveness, intelligence, and morality.
So now I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the relationship between colorism and racism. What are the differences? Colorism is a product or symptom of racism. So with racism, those of different races but identical skin colors will be treated unequally. With colorism, those of the same race but different skin colors will be treated unequally. Colorism among people of the same race is also considered a form of internalized racism. So complexion intersects with other forms of identity like gender, class, and ethnicity. Race and color should not be used interchangeably. Using color to describe someone's race is racist, but the reality of colorism is often hidden. Colorism is also intersectional. So colorism is another layer to how people are experiencing violence and oppression on top of racism. So racism and colorism are, again, interlocking systems of oppression. Skin color will continue to be the most apparent factor in how someone will be judged and treated in the United States. Basis of colorism in the Black community also reflects greater vulnerability to racism, among those women with a darker complexion in the United States.
So now that we have discussed a little bit about what colorism is, we're going to be talking about how colorism has been affecting African American women. The main points that we're going to be talking about is how colorism has affected them in their personal experiences, in higher education, job opportunities, in the workplace, and in healthcare. So how has colorism been affecting Black women's personal experiences? So according to the Black feminist theory, the devaluation of U.S. Black women has been rooted since the institutions of American slavery. Black women's bodies in the past and still to this day have been devalued and rejected in the mainstream culture. The notion that Black women are less attractive is a message that has been transmitted daily from generations to generations from many external social institutions such as churches, government, business industries, media, and even family. In 2014, the Journal of Black Physiology conducted a study that examined the body image concerns among African American women. During the study, they created 5 focus groups made up of young college Black women on the large campus of Southwestern University. As a result to the study, they were able to see Black women's opinions and experiences based on their skin color. Black women reported that there was still a persistent and overwhelming preference for light skin when it came to color consciousness within family, mate selection, and desire for lighter skinned children, and the ability to discuss issues related to skin color preference. Research also has shown that among the Black community, African American women of lighter skin tones are perceived as more attractive than darker skinned women. Evidence has shown that colorism can influence a Black woman's feelings of attractiveness or self-worth, overall decreasing the body image satisfaction. And in general, skin complexions appear to be an important factor within the Black community. But some Black women express that their hair is also part of their individual identity. One of the participants stated that her beauty was not only defined by her skin color, but by the way she self-presented herself in her confidence and her inner beauty. I decided to include one of the respondents' notes from the study that was conducted by the Journal of Physiology, in which she stated, "As long as I perceive myself as beautiful, then I'd rather not have any issues with the media's opinion. The media's deception of beauty or how others would define beauty, or just anything that goes along that type of reference. Just because of what's in the media today, if you don't have that own self-image, then you might not be satisfied with yourself." So tying this back into how colorism has been affecting personal experiences, research has shown that darker skinned women find themselves with decreased body image satisfaction, lower self-esteem, and finding rejection based on their skin tone. So we will take a few minutes and view this video about personal experiences and colorism. A little background to this video: it is 8 women who all identify as Black, but they have talked a little bit about the topics that we will be discussing or that we have been discussing, such as self-image and appearance, discrimination, light skin privilege, and some family experiences that they had.
Colorism conversations for me are always really interesting because the way that I grew up was you need to be darker.
Really?
Like everyone in my family wants to be darker.
I'm all about being darker. I didn't realize this until my teens though, but like when I went to Grenada and like I got like a really nice, healthy, dark tan, I felt like my skin was glowing.
Right,
Beautiful. Yeah, like, all right.
There's this picture of a couple of rappers. It was like Jay-Z, Diddy, Swiss Beats, somebody else at a table, and they were like talking about like what excellence looks like, and all of their women. You had Beyonce, Alicia Keys, Cassie, all very light skinned. So clearly there's an association with like being high class and looking a certain way. And I know for me, like I was always very urged to like this idea of like a messy bun, like throwing your hair in a messy bun. And I used to have hair like more than this. So like putting my hair in a messy bun and putting on sweats and going outside, I couldn't do that, because if I do that as a darker skinned woman with my hair nappy and like, then somebody might think I was homeless. Or somebody would think like, oh, that she didn't shower today or whatever. The lighter you are and the more polished you look is definitely associated with more money.
My family comes from an ethnicity called Garifuna, and we're a mixture of West African and Arawakan people. In our home country of Guatemala, there's a lot of indigenous folks and Garifuna folks together. And usually they get together and they have mulalu, like basically biracial children. And that was always seen as beautiful. Having that overall really shaped the way I viewed myself, and feeling that I was never really beautiful in my skin. So I had to literally like seek that out on myself to love my melanin.
My two best friends are much lighter than me, right? So I have been standing next to my friends and people have literally not said hello to me because they are not seeing me. People literally ignore dark-skinned women, particularly fat, dark-skinned women, particularly fat, dark-skinned women that don't have no hair. Me, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know that when I'm being called light-skinned, as somebody's trying to holler at me or whatever, like it's a compliment. But it's uncomfortable for me to be called light-skinned, because it's like you're calling me, you're saying I'm different from you. You're saying that I'm not in your, like you're excluding me from a community.
But it's more of like a dismissal.
Yeah. And being black and white, like I'm not gonna not tell you my mother is white, but I'm not white. I am not half white. I am a black woman. I don't like that we're separated by skin tones when I could have had two black parents and been the skin tone.
I'm hearing a lot about, this European or Eurocentric standard of beauty. But I'm also sometimes offended when people on the color spectrum would question my sort of commitment to the race. I think there's a part of me that also resents if someone say, well, if you're not natural, you didn't do this, which I feel like I'm natural. I didn't have any chemical in my hair, but I decided, I'm gonna blow dry my hair. And that doesn't make me any less than one of my sisters who's deciding something else.
My first memory of race, I would say, has been about colorism, which I think is interesting because I think it was me asking my mom if she was white, which I thought was really interesting. And then she told me the first memory she remembers was when I was at a park and I was playing with these kids, and then the older sister came over and she was like, no, don't play with her because she's brown. The color spectrum is something that we have to deal with if we want to move forward at all as a people.
You have to understand that we didn't originally create this type of animosity. We didn't create this kind of intense relations with each other. It was brought upon us. So even if it was here for African Americans in the US, or if it's in, Central or South America or in the Caribbean, it's this was something that was structured to be able to divide and conquer.
So are we saying that it's on lighter-skinned people to open doors or make spaces? Are we saying that we don't collectively have the power to make our own space?
Yeah, I think it's a joint effort. As far as looking towards the future, we have these examples of what Jordan Peele just released this film. He has Lupita Nyong'o as a lead. You have people even just in conversations, people talk about Beyonce, but now people are like, what about Kelly though? This idea of bringing darker women to the forefront, that is present. In the families we create, we have to make sure that we enforce that self-love. And then also lighter skinned people, making sure that they don't
succumb to Eurocentric standards of beauty or like influencing it.
We are two Black women experiencing something together. Mm-hmm. My way of showing up for you is if I need to put my body on the line, I'm putting my body on the line. The way that you're disrupting systems of oppression is making sure people acknowledge my humanity. Mm-hmm. We finna do this together. Mm-hmm. It's like we have to do it together.
I love you so very much.
Yes. That was
Okay, so continuing on, we will be discussing Black women in higher education. The American Association of University Women is a nonprofit organization that focuses on equality for women through advocacy for education and research. Their focus is to conduct research to see how women of color are represented in higher education spectrum. During this research, it was found that Black women are significantly less than white women to enroll in four-year colleges and graduate within 6 years and go on to earn an advanced degree. As the graph shows on the screen, on average, 64.3% of white students finish a four-year degree within 6 years, compared to 39.8% of Black students. Based on participation in degrees attained by Black Americans, African American women have started to make more noticeable progress in higher education. And among Black students, women are more likely than men to earn degrees. Although African American women are increasing their graduation rates, they aren't keeping up with the pace of white, Latina, and Asian American women. Black students in colleges tend to be underrepresented. This could be due to the lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion of students within the support systems. Specific, targeted interventions and unique needs are needed to continue to support African American women throughout colleges. Research shows that only about 5.2% of faculty members at bachelor or degree granting school are Black. By having fewer Black female students on campus than what is optimal, it doesn't provide a sense of community, support, and sense of belongings to these students.
So colorism in the workplace. Did you know that Black women have been the most educated but most undervalued? So what is it like to be a Black woman in corporate America? While others are preparing for a job interview, it may look like this: getting a haircut, finding the right outfit, thinking about the potential answers for the interview questions. For Black women, many times, they often not only have to think about their job qualifications, but they also have to worry about the looks or even worry about who will be interviewing them or who is in the higher position, because many times they feel like someone will judge them based on the color of their skin. This brings a broader discussion of microaggressions in the colorist microaggressions that are experienced. Microaggressions are comments and actions that demean or dismiss someone based on their gender, race, and other aspects of their identity. Dr. J. Camille from the University of Tennessee says often a Black woman's experience with racial microaggressions are centered on the European beauty standards, reporting having their natural hair texture and style negatively judged by their white counterparts at work. These individuals felt pressure to straighten or alter their hair to make it look more European. This is a classic tenet of colorism. So microaggressions experienced by Black women in the workplace are often higher levels of disrespect towards them. Hearing remarks about the way they look and having their language skills or other abilities questioned. Dr. Matthew Harrison, whose research focused on colorism in the American workplace, had indicated that dark-skinned African American women face a distinct disadvantage when applying to jobs. even if they have the superior qualifications and experience to lighter skinned counterparts. Another barrier that is present is the lack of leadership representation in the workplace. A research study by Lean Foundation found that Black women are much less likely to be promoted to manager, and their representation dwindles from there. Again, this comes from a lack of support from those in higher positions. The lack of support Black women face in their jobs have had an impact in the relationships they build at work. This is creating an issue as those who are supported by their managers are more likely to be promoted or get a raise. This is causing barriers in their advancements in careers as they lack access to these opportunities by often being ignored. Another statistic from Lean Foundation shows that 49% of Black women feel that their race or ethnicity will make them to get a raise, promotion, or chance to get ahead, compared to just 3% of white women and 11% of women overall. And I included a quote from the Woman of Color in the Workplace study. And here's a quote: "I feel like expectations for me as a Black woman are much higher than those of my white counterparts. It feels like I am expected to go above and beyond while my colleagues at the same level just do what is described in our job description." Now I'm going to talk about colorism and healthcare disparities, focusing more on mental health. So the systemic problems within healthcare are based on race and colorism. Some leading factors include negligence and lack of access to treatments. Mental health has been impacted differently within the discrimination based on skin tone. Being able to understand how skin color may impact stress and psychological well-being of African American women is a significant contribution toward prevention of suicide risk in this vulnerable population. Education, income, and marital status and health insurance are used to examine to the extent in which social economic resources explain the relationship between skin tone and health. Black women with a darker complexion are more likely to perceive or experience discrimination and other related stressors than their lighter counterparts, impacting the other health outcomes. So PMC National Institute shows that the African American woman who classified their skin tone as medium or dark experienced gendered racism, substantially increased risk for suicidal, while there was no significant effect among those reporting light skin. Recent work also similarly has found associations among darker skin tone, higher levels of perceived discrimination, and higher levels of depression and worse self-rated mental health among African American women. Birth outcomes. According to the CDC, Black mothers in the US die at 3 to 4 times the rate of white mothers. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women. Racial disparities in the healthcare have created a hardship in Black women's lives in ways making it challenging to find trust in doctors and reaching out for medical help. Higher rates of denied tests/treatments, disbelieved by their doctors, as well as negligence. So researchers gathered their data from interviews and medical records of 1,410 African American mothers who gave birth at a hospital in Detroit, Michigan. And some data shows that women who report experiencing microaggressions were approximately 30% more likely to have delayed prenatal care. light and dark brown women experience the most microaggressions and were the two groups most likely to delay prenatal care. Berkeley News says, yeah, infant mortality rates for Black women with a college degree are higher than those for white women with just a high school education. Although education, socioeconomic class, and other assessors were all accounted for, yet Black women are still dying at higher rates. Persistence of racial discrimination across classes, resulting in lower life expectancy and higher rates of infant mortality, and also also highlights the unique challenges women in general and Black women in particular face trying to be taken seriously and getting their needs met by their doctor. Reports of medical employees dismissing concerns has been a huge factor in avoiding seeking medical help. Bias and stereotyping in healthcare may impact the level of healthcare they receive. And according to the CDC, the majority of these maternal deaths were preventable. So I'm going to talk a little bit of colorism in the justice system for Black women. So skin tone can affect how harshly Black women are punished for a crime. The researchers found that light-skinned women were sentenced to approximately 12% less time behind bars than their dark-skinned counterparts. Women with light skin also served 11% less time than darker women. American Progress reports the spike in female incarceration has disproportionately affected Black women, especially young Black women. While Black women overall are twice as likely to be in prison as their white counterparts, Black women ages 18 and 19 are 3 times more likely to be in prison than their white counterparts. The incarceration rate of African American women was more than double the incarceration rate of white women. Significant relationships between skin tone and sentencing, arrests, and police stops. When authorities perceive offenders as having a lighter skin shade, it translates into a more lenient criminal justice outcome. Science Direct presents analysis extends the line of inquiry by examining how perceived skin tone is related to maximum prison sentences and actual time served for over 12,000 Black women imprisoned in North Carolina between 1995 and 2009. So there was a research study from the Villanova University in Philadelphia, and they sampled 12,158 imprisoned Black females in North Carolina from 1995 through 2009. Indicate the lighter skinned female prisoners are sentenced to approximately 12% less time behind the bars than dark skinned inmates. The results also show that having light skin reduces the actual time served by about 11%. PMC Institute of Health found that African American women with dark skin, again, were 11 times more likely to experience frequent racial discrimination than their lighter skinned counterparts. Patterns such as harsher sentencing in the criminal justice system. And I would like to let people know that there are a few studies conducted since then, as again, colorism is often a topic of research that is often overlooked and not looked upon. And it's the reason behind is it's mostly confused with racism itself. And although the research was done in 2009, it's still a very much present issue, and not much has been done since then. Judging based on the color, again, is just another way for oppression against Black women that needs to end. Again, it's putting mothers in jail when they should not be, as well as longer sentences away from their families. And it has been a repeated cycle of oppression. So to wrap this up, we wanted to give a few final thoughts for you to take in. So while many of you are living with these issues, others are just trying to make sense of them. It is important to remember to share your experiences. If one wants to understand one another, we need to learn to listen. What we hope you all take away from this presentation is better awareness of colorism. A reminder to make space for all Black women, whether it's in the classroom, in your workplace, in family, or in general, in your everyday lives. And thank you for coming to our presentation. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the chat for us. And thank you.
I'll keep an eye out for any additional questions that come in, but as you all are thinking on that, if you would also remember to provide your feedback for this survey for Jocelin and Arleth, you can do that over on the left hand in the Whova system under surveys. If you would click on that, you'll be able to provide your feedback for their presentation. There's a question that came in the Zoom chat. I don't know which chats you all can see. And this one says, can you speak more to the color caste system and how it disproportionately impacts darker skinned women in the job market and ultimately socioeconomic status and upward economic mobility?
This brings back to the effects of colorism leading to like the job market. For example, like Jocelyn was talking about like standards of beauty and just overall the history behind colorism is just it's just something that has been systemically placed for oppression.
There's another question in the Whova chat. It says, do you have any suggestions on how someone can overcome their internalized inferiority complex due to upbringing?
I would suggest maybe try gathering in like groups that they have with like people you might find yourself welcome into, like a community. They can help you just realize that you're not the only one who might be struggling with feeling oppressed, especially based on your skin tone and stuff like that. So just finding a community in which you feel like you're comfortable in and being able to share your experience and have others share their experiences as well.
And then here's another one that came through Zoom. Are there measures being implemented or explored to reduce the incidence or impact of colorism in healthcare, in the justice system, in education?
There hasn't really been much implementation other than, for example, in the healthcare system, more training for the medical professionals, understanding the differences between, Black women.
Adding on to that, just bringing more awareness to the issue as well. Like in the higher education, like I had stated, there needs to be specific needs to continue to support the success of Black women. So just bringing more awareness and being able to provide more help to those that need it.
Another question, what role do you think popular culture plays in reducing or increasing colorism?
Well, in the media, like celebrities have a huge impact well, the thing is, like, higher artists like Beyonce and Rihanna have talked about colorism and how it has put them further in their career.
I feel like it's just increasing more colorism as well, because lighter skinned women tend to be more appreciated or more valued in the popular culture other than dark skinned women. So I feel like although they have tried to bring awareness to it, not much has changed.
Are there other questions for Arleth and Jocelin? Well, I'm not seeing more questions come in right now, so there is a lot of shout out love for both of you in the Zoom chat, though. So hopefully you had a chance to see that. Folks thought it was a great presentation. And then if you did think it was a great presentation, please go ahead and fill out that survey that you can find in the Whobot platform so that they can have your feedback on their presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.